Congratulations on this film. It's a wonderful, I think it's been described as an un-rom-com.
Is that what? Well, you've got to call it something. I've got to give it a title, some kind of sort of nickname or something, whatever.
But you're playing probably the most entrenched character from the days. What was it like picking up that character and playing up against Jack and Hayley?
Well, that's one of the reasons I liked it, because I wanted to try and, see how you can try and squeeze in as much, strain in it as you can. Someone who's really starting to live in a world that's changing around him and doesn't really, he's not equipped to do it. Which must have been the case for a lot of men of that period that didn't, really meant well. They just wanted to get their daughters married to somebody really who could take them off their hands and look after them.
Yeah.
Mate loved them, take care of them. He loves her, but there's a whole generation of men that were worried about this that we've forgotten about. That they don't. There was no way that women could really fend for themselves. So that's one of his main worries. So he is typical in the sense that he's, that's a kind of, I suppose, a sweet take on it. You could say he's just a miserable old entrenched, reactionary bugger of his times. But I don't think he is. I didn't see him like that. I saw him as somebody who was, and then eventually willing, even reluctantly, to see that his daughter's representative of a new world and that he's got to let it go.
Yeah, because the social tearing, as you say, he's got a good heart. And yet at the same time, the kind of strain of this new world must have been so huge for so many men. But we get to see a bit of both sides of the story.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean he's, and also it's always struck me, because I have in the history of my family, I'm old enough to know people who knew Victorians. I was brought up by Edwardians. So that there were men who had a lot of responsibility thrust upon them, and they didn't really want it. They found themselves with 5 or 6 children, a lot of working class men, having to work, and then and then really the responsibility of not really knowing quite how to go about it. They were not, a lot of them started having kids when they were young themselves. So this whole thing of people forced into situations where you say, okay, women don't have a choice, much less choice than men. And that is absolutely true, because there's no freedom. But men of that time were also, in a sense, responsible for having to do exactly the same, but in a more established way. They had the superior crack of the whip because they were in charge, as it were. But in a sense, I always thought, actually, what if they don't want to be? No wonder a lot of them were miserable, because they were struggling with thinking, am I equipped for this? I'm letting off an entire generation of old bastards here, but I do. So that it's easy to generalise, I think, about how people actually were and what they thought. How they were struggling with things. I mean, as I say, I'm not making excuses for terrible behaviour in the past, but sometimes to understand how truly liberating these things were. These men had to change their attitude. Okay, a lot of them had to be forced. Society, the structures had to be forced with, women's suffrage, terrible things. They had to illustrate to show how oppressed they were. But these guys, of course, had a lot to learn, and it was hard for them as well.
And you filmed this up north, in some of my favourite parts of the world. What was that?
Newcastle, yeah.
And Beamish as well.
Yeah, that's great. What a blessing that was, to turn up with somewhere like that, which if you're in America, that would have cost like 30 million to build, wouldn't it? It was just there. I mean, it's amazing that we had this fantastic Edwardian museum there, Victorian museum, with all these buses and shops and streets. I mean, extraordinary. So blessed.
Yeah, it's so good to have that kind of thing in this country. It makes it a very British film. What is it that is kind of going to be one of your favourite takeaways from this one?
Well, I think right from the beginning, I was surprised that Virginia Woolf had written something that was ostensibly a comedy. You don't associate them with it. I mean, they're amusing, she's witty, she's deeply clever, intellectually brilliant. But you don't think of her as writing a comedy. So I thought, this is an interesting thing. So I think that and also what I like about it is that the director had a very interesting take on it. She wanted a lot of improvisation, a lot of freeing up, a lot of experiment on the set, and that was an interesting thing to do. So then when you come and see it and watch it as I have, and it has all this element of it being slightly unusual and different, I think that's what I like about it. We do a lot of costume pieces here, but I think this has a sort of zest to it and a slightly different take on it that makes it different.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Congratulations again, and it's been lovely to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!